Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's FPV Podcast. We got an old buddy joining us again, and he's going to be catching us back up on what happened in 2017 and also talking to us about what's going on in 2018, which there is plenty to talk about in 2018. But before we get into all of that, Elvin, what do you got this week?
Hey, man, I just wanted to say I hope everybody's out flying. That's all it is, man. It's beautiful weather out here in the Northwest, and we're just out here flying. I got in 3 hours of flying today. 3 hours.
That's
in the air. In the air.
In the air. Joe Scully wishes he can say that where he lives in Canada. Joe Scully, catch us up on what's going on with you, man.
Oh, I mean, I'm just living the dream in Canada. It is probably about 5 degrees outside, and I have at least 2 feet of snow. And I finally have a fire going. I had to trug, like, you know, when kids complain about what they have to go through, and their parents are like, you know, when I went to school, I had to walk uphill in bare feet both ways. I mean, that's how I had to bring my firewood in, like just like a lumberjack. So it's a Canadian life. But other than that, I mean, things are going well. We're doing so much planning right now for the 2018 season, and we're having a lot of fun. I mean, I'm right now in a little bit of a hiatus. I think my last event was 2 weeks ago, and then last weekend I got to spend some family time this weekend as well, and then I transition out to Colorado and then Las Vegas from there. So back on the road, just living that dream, and also trying to fly a little bit. There's a little surprise. Yeah,
There you go.
But right now, it's all DRL simulator and Velocidrone. That's the extent of my flying here for the last month, because my skills aren't good enough. Even though I can fly, I'm about 30 packs deep with my Vortex 180 Mini. I am a little scared to take it outside because it's not conformal coated, right?
Oh, yeah.
And lose my white drone in the white snow.
You can borrow mine.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
well, the one guy, the dry drone is was distributed by a Canadian, Paul Dowling. He's a friend of mine, lives not too far away, so I could probably get it, but I mean, I'd have to take it apart. And now we're talking about, this is too much work. There's too much work. So, you know, there's a reset button on Velocidrone and the DRL sim, so I'm going to live with that.
Just got to do the work, homie. Got to do the work.
Hey, we're glad anybody that can get some sick time, especially you, Joe. Good to hear that you're doing well and always staying busy, having to travel to all these major events. It's a tough life, but we always enjoy seeing you out there doing your magic. So what we're going to do for this podcast, because we have so much to catch up on, is we're going to try to split it up into 2 parts. First part, we're going to try to talk about 2017 because we always like to have a nice recap of the year. And then the second part, probably the larger part, we're going to talk about 2018 because there's a lot of stuff that's going on. We were just talking about it before the podcast. So part one.
It's very exciting. I remember, you know, from this time last year, we had a podcast and we were like, wow, you know, 2017, not sure how many events are coming. I'm like, yeah, you know, there's some things going on. And then we spoke at Mega Drone X and we're like, wow, 2017 was crazy. So, you know, here we are, deja vu all over again.
Always trying to grow, baby. That's always, you know, it's the, I don't know, entrepreneur life, growth life. I don't know how you want to call it. But let's go ahead and start getting into the recap. So there was actually a fairly great number of, you know, big races that went on. I would say we're still on par with 2016 for 2017, but still, I think we made progress in terms of actually collectively coming together as a community and making some great events. Internationally, I think they actually took a step up. There were several countries that really wowed us with their events. So we'll get into a little bit about that. But I think the first event that we're going to talk about, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, has got to be Sebring. Would you say that?
Heck yeah, you know, what a great way to start the year, and especially for us in the north where we get to spend a week in Florida. That's paradise, you know. The whole regional series with Multi-GP, the 2018 version, we're spending a lot of time scheduling that. And, you know, I think a lot of people are really realizing that the north only has about a 3 or a 4 month window for drone racing. So for everyone to make their way down to Central Florida for January for a drone race in 2017 with a $20,000 purse. That was an awesome start to the year. And, very, very luckily and fortunately, 2018, we got to kick off the year the exact same way. So one of my favorite events of the year, as always, we had a lot of fun. That's where we really got to see our multi-GP team shine. I was there as part of FPV Racing Events, my production company. FPV Live was there as part of their live streaming team. And MultiGP was there as a sanctioning body. Everyone knows Chris Thomas. He was there with the bullhorn, but then he brought Hefty and Nelson and a few other people, and we all rolled up our sleeves and just an outstanding event with so many different things. That's where we also met Michael Den Hartog, who is the actual promoter of the event. He was a liaison between the Sebring Airport Authority and the event. This year he was the financer, but that first year he was a liaison, and he is a tech guy. Like, he works in professional video, and we actually brought him into our fold. And we'll be talking a lot about Den Hartog over the course of this, but we brought him into the fold right before Sebring with the Hot Import Nights project because, he was learning drones. It worked for his event. And so at Sebring, there's some shots of the race control that we had. And 52-inch TVs. I had 4 of them. One is my DVR. One is what's on the live stream. The other one's the scoring computer. And then the other one's the chat. Then we had our computers. And, I felt like a rock star in there. And we pushed like 118 pilots through, and I think everyone flew 4 times a day, and some pretty good numbers there, and a really exciting event. And again, the weather was good, and the camaraderie at that event, it all ended with karaoke at the Cactus Shack or whatever it was, the Cowpoke or whatever country podunk place it was. So a great way to start the season, especially handing out $20,000 cash.
Definitely. And it was one of those events where I think MultiGP really did a great job for themselves by partnering up with another great organization. And I think that's going to be great going forward. And it's one of those events where you really saw the community really jump in, and everybody from across the nation come to Florida where it's warm, which is nice, and then participate, which is great, right?
Yeah, exactly. We also had an outstanding amount of support from sponsors in the 2017 edition. The Dollars, I think, was probably one of the most lucrative events within the MultiGP umbrella, even though that year all funds went to the event. And, but great support, from all of our staples and great partners that support all these events, Fat Shark and Team Black Sheep, of course. I don't think there's anything they don't support. God bless Chappie, the team. They're even supporting simulators now for, they're just everywhere. But also, Horizon was there in a big way, and then Hobbico, they came and they launched their spec racer, the Fusion or whatever. But that was a big part of the event, and Amamon was there. All these great companies got behind that event, and locally, Get FPV was there, and it was such an awesome event to see. The vendors and then the pilots were, from all over North America. There were a couple Canadians there, but we also had Fred Potts from South Africa and a couple other people, from Latin America that made the trip. So really, really awesome to see that. And then, you jump a year later, to like 3 weeks ago, and now that event featured such an international roster. Like, you had England and Poland and South America in a big way, Philippines, Australia, so a really, really awesome event that, it even pushed itself even bigger. That went from a $20,000 purse in 2017 to a $32,000 cash purse in 2018. So, wow. And just, an awesome event. Other things that you saw, and, we had the spectators in the middle of the course with the pilots, and that has always been exciting. When you think back to that drone race that we did on an island for the sponsors, right. The fish tank or the aquarium at the event on Governor's Island was what everyone talked about. And, that's always been something every organizer and promoter has either wanted to do previous, or we look to that. And in Sebring, we put all the spectators in the middle of the course and have people flying around. And and what did we learn from that? Don't use monofilament netting in the middle of the course. And 2018, then we have better netting. And so netting for tunnel and pit area and the center of the course wasn't a play in 2018. But we, again, that event, what we learned there, a lot of take homes, and Den Hartog's, again, a great influence to our tech and our presentation, where we actually, if you look at Reno, which was, it was the national championships for multi-GP, but if you look at it from a production end, I mean, you got staging, you have, once again, spectators in the middle of the course, but you have a bridge, we have proper netting, we have a much safer environment. Again, the net came into play when people spiked their quads into the roof, which was a whole new variable. But it's such a banner event that I'm very excited to say that no matter what affiliation or what events you go to or whatever, it's like Sebring is just like one of those top 3 events of the year. It's like one of the ones that you have to go to. And in 2017, I'd say, if you're from Canada or the States or Mexico and you weren't at Sebring and you have any skills, then, you better put it on the calendar for next year. And then here, 2018, it's like, all right, no matter where you are in the world, if you're a drone racer, you got to come to this event. And, it lived up to the extent its expectations here in 2018 as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a great event. So let me ask you this, because at the beginning of 2017, when Sebring was happening, did you get an inkling for the transition of young pilots starting to really take over in the podium spots at that point? Because we track racing here, me and Elvin, right? And throughout the year, we noticed almost, midway through immediately that like the youngsters were like, they were like, wow, they wowed us.
People.
There we go. They were upsetting people.
I wouldn't say that Sebring was one of the ones that really got on our radar. I mean, let's be honest, Dubai, 15-year-old drone racing sensation, Benny UK wins it. And, and it's amazing that was March of 2016. Drone racing started in 15, and we're calling all the pilots that weren't 15 the OGs. But, most drone racers are in their late 20s, early 30s at that time, and this 15-year-old. So obviously there we're like, hey, kids are fast. They got this. Maybe it's a transition from gaming. We don't know. At Sebring, from a competition level, I mean, we had some young kids there. There was the one guy that did really well at the 2016 champs, Sid FPV from Florida, and he was only like 14, 15. He was at Sebring, and he did top 10, I think. He did pretty good. Drobot Racer, he was top 10. That was his first competition event, which was great. But, who won it? It was, right at the top, Matt Air, and I guess he's kind of a kid, but I mean, he's not. He's got his driver's license, so
just barely.
So I mean, we're seeing kids do well with the Sid and the Drobot and others, but then as you get into, I would say, June, Chris Thomas and I were at an event at Joe Null, which was a heck of a party, and all of a sudden, this one kid just came out of nowhere. Like his dad turns out to be a doctor, but this crazy redneck party dad is just loving life. FPV dad number 1 is there pushing his kid, and his kid is killing it. And like, where did this kid come from? Like, it's Joe Null, where it's all like the big wings and
I think I know who you're talking about, right?
And this kid, like, puts his plane down and takes his quad out there, just slays the competition. And it's Evan Turner. That's who I'm talking about, Mr. Miyagi, of course, right? And that was like June, and we're like, wow, this kid's fast. And carry that story to Sebring 2018. Boom, he was our TQ and lost it in the final race, crashing into a gate. So I mean, that's where we're like, here's another kid that goes with our roster. Right. But then with multi-GP regional series, you have with that, it was the perfect score, the perfect lap count in the 2 minutes on the regional championships or the regional finals course was 6. A perfect score, taking your best 3 of 5, was 18, 666. And one of the first guys to do it was Zero, who's also one of those young guys that should have been on that list when I first recited it. But Conrad's kid Zero, boom, first one to do it. Then you have Dolma in California. You have McGap, who's a little bit older, but then you're like, okay, the kids are definitely owning it. And so, yeah, by the time regional series really kicked off, and you got Evan Turner, you got Dolma, you have Drobot, and all these other young guns, and we're seeing it go younger and younger. And now with Megadrone X in 2008, the end of 2017, and Sebring. You also got Olaf, big tall Olaf in there. Right. Another young kid just slaying it. So, yeah, I mean, I think 2017 was the year that the kids really took over, and they continue.
And they continue. Yeah. So this actually leads us great into the second event that we want to talk about, which is the collegiate race that Multi-GP hosted, along with, I believe, 24 other colleges, or 24 colleges participated with pilots.
Yeah, that was a big one for us. I mean, that was in, I think, mid-April, and it was the first ever collegiate series. It was something that Multi-GP wanted to get involved with. Like, they wanted to, one of the plans of, bigger regional series, and then a collegiate, and then maybe a scholastic, and then a world championship. There's many things that are on that hit list, and collegiate one of them. And out of nowhere, the Purdue Drone Club reached out to Multi-GP and said, hey, we want to host this a national collegiate championship. And, and we want to do it in the next 2 months. So they did a lot of the legwork, I would say most of the legwork, to get it started. And they reached out to all these different schools, and it turned out being, like you said, 24 different colleges or universities sent one pilot or more. I think we had about 50 or 60 pilots over the course of the competition, and an outstanding race. And that one was a really big surprise. Multi-GP came in. We helped with the sponsorship and the prizing, the live stream, and the management of the race. But Purdue did basically the rest of it. And it was a good partnership between the two organizations. But going into it, I mean, we were so worried. We, as in myself, my team and Multi-GP, we were looking at this. We're like, okay, we're going to have some college kids. How many college kids can we name off? And we're like, okay, Nick Willard. Okay, Nick Willard. That's all we got. Well, there's got to be another one. Is Johnny still in college? Johnny FPV? And we're like, so there's going to be a handful of like super fast guys, but then there's going to be these other college kids, we call them, that they're going to say, oh, this will be fun. They're going to build a kit, and we're going back to 2015 style of drone racing, and that's where the perception it turns into a misconception, where all of a sudden we see this roster, and you got Ivan Rodriguez and Viastro, who ends up winning the collegiate championship, one of the fastest from Texas, who has won the regional series down in that region of Multi-GP. You got these guys from California like Niwao and so many, and Willard, his team Georgia Tech got the top team at the event. And so there was I think there was only one noob out of the entire field of 50 that eventually did a lap by the end of the event, and everyone else was a killer. So, and it was just such an outstanding event. And that's where the kids, I mean, for us, the surprise was a lot of these pilots we didn't know were in college. We don't know everyone's background. Right. There's 20,000 pilots in Multi-GP, so right. But just an amazing event. And I think they're moving ahead on another 2018 version. I haven't really heard too much about that, but that was another banner event, especially as you talk about the kids and the young guns. And it was exciting at Sebring. Sebring, why I'm talking about that so much is because it was like 2 weeks ago. Right. It's obviously top of mind, but we got into our final 8 of the top 64 of 105 pilots at Sebring. And in that finals, as I'm doing the introductions across the line, there was a shot, and there is Envy Astro, who won the Collegiate Drone Championships, and Mewow, Corey Ibanez, who I think was third. They're meeting again in the final here in Sebring, and they were, on our podium over at Purdue in April. So really cool to see, that play out, and the caliber of pilots. And, I think we have a great future. They're only going to get faster, and as our sport improves, and they're all model citizens, to the best of my knowledge, too, as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's one of those events where I was with you on that, because I actually watched a lot of the live stream, because it was out of curiosity for the most part, because okay, here's this collegiate thing. And I was like you, I couldn't name off very many people. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, all of these guys know how to race. Okay, all of these guys are pretty fast. Okay, this is actually going to be a good competition. And then you come to the end, you're like, okay, we have a good future in terms of young people that really want to commit to racing. So that's probably the most encouraging thing that I saw, from Sebring to the collegiate race, is that we have a lot of young people. They may not be disciplined in just drones or multi-rotors. A lot of the young kids, they fly everything, and they're good at everything. Some of them have national championships in other disciplines,
Mr. Turner.
Like Mr. Turner. Yeah. But, they get their stick times in drone racing, so they're always going to be relevant, which is very interesting. And, if drone racing continues to grow, they might, dedicate to just drone racing. That's kind of the goal and the hope. Is that what you see? Is that hopefully we can convert some of the other guys over to, being just dedicated drone racers? Are you seeing some of that?
Well, yeah, you're definitely seeing that. A lot of people are coming from other portions of the hobby. The freestylers become racers. Even the guy who was victim of the hammer is now a top 10 racer in his region, and he was there as a freestyler. So you're seeing that. You're also seeing a lot of car people pick up the FPV, because it's a whole new dynamic. And so I think you're going to see that. And we see with a lot of these events, because we've had partnerships with Flight Fest, amazing partnerships with Flight Fest, and we're at Joe Knoll, and so many other different events, from the big aviation, where Sebring is at an airport, and Reno Air Race Championship. Cincinnati did a big, the Cincinnati and Cleveland group, the Ohio group, all of them, they all partnered up with another air show. So we're seeing all these different forms of aviation, whether it's RC or otherwise, and there's a lot of people that are going to it, and I think they're gonna make this the focus if they can compete and they can enjoy it, and they have a chance to win money instead of just trophies. Then I think you're going to see more of that. The sport is still so new, and we don't know where it's going to go. But even at this point, there are so many opportunities. You look at Envy Astro, has not got the call yet for DRL, but his flying mate Adam KK has Adma 20. So it's just a matter of time. He's going to be the next guy. Does he get that by default? Heck no. He's a collegiate champion. He just was in the top 5 in Sebring, and he wins almost every race in Texas, which is one of the hardest regions or states in multi GP. So more. It's going to. If there's a big enough reward and it's enjoyable enough, then I think you'll see more people focusing on making that. And you can't spread yourself too thin. There's something to be said of looking at Sean Taylor's Facebook group, where it's Night Fury's DVR only, and seeing his regimen. He was at the top of his game and injured himself, and he's the first one to tell you that he sucked when he started. Probably as bad as I'm sucking right now. I'm just starting as well, so I feel
Everybody
his pain.
Has,
he was the worst, but he practiced every day, and the number of packs and hours that he spent, he had to get in that regimen to be good. Was he good? Heck yeah, he still is. 2-time multi-GP national champion, and all the other credits that he's won. Just a legend worldwide. The Australian championship he won. and he had to push himself, but then all of a sudden he injures himself, and now he's on his way back, but now he has to get back into that regimen again, and it takes the focus. If he also can get burnt out. And at one point, he actually said he was practicing too much, causing issues. And I think that's true with anything. Like, if you want to get into drone racing, you really want to push it to the next level to be, an NV Astro, BMS Thomas, and this. You have to have the determination, but you also have to, sports psychology yourself up where it's okay to go do flippy floppies, legally do a bridge or a building dive. It's okay. And don't give yourself a high five when you do it. Because let me tell you this, I have zero skills. Okay. Zero. I've got 30 packs with my Vortex 180 Mini, and this is not shots fired at freestylers, but just let me tell you this. I have the DRL sim and the Velocidrone sim. The regional qualifier track for 2018 multi-GP came out on Velocidrone. I have a 90-second lap time, guys. 90 seconds. They're doing it in 20s, okay? Right. I have zero skills. I crash and burn, hit that reset button. I finally got a 90-second. I ran around with my shirt off celebrating, right? Brutal. Then I go, I need a break. And this is what everyone should do when you're training for anything. I need a break. Like, I'm a rodeo guy. Instead of just roping steers, I'll go for a trail ride. I just need a break. So I open up the DRL sim. First thing I did, I went to the warehouse area with the boats, and I dived that bridge just like Rotor Riot did in Canada. I did it better than the viral video, but I can't hit a gate. Okay, so flippy floppies, you can call it a Matty flip all day long. Unless you're doing the Robo Genesis stuff of 2018, forget about it. All right, you're not a superstar, but it's okay. Right. Enjoy it. It's all about enjoying the hobby. But if Scully can building dive and bridge dive, but not fly the 2018 Multi-GP Regional Series course, it's a different grit and determination.
I've said that before, so I'm not going to elaborate on it much more.
Well,
but it's fun. I mean, that's why we're in this, and gosh darn it, there's when I first got my quad going, again, I have zero skills. I mean, when it comes to RF and receivers and running races and scoring and heck yeah, that's what I'm at. But this whole time, I'll grab someone's quad and line of sight it and crash it, and we laugh. And my handle is Scully LOS. Like I have no skills. I don't have time to train on the sim, and I don't have time to build a quad. And like I'm bragging about my RTF. Right behind me, I have 4 quads. I have a Tiny Whoop. I have the Fat Shark 101. I have a Falcor. I actually have 10 of them. But I have a Falcor and this Vortex 180 Mini. All out of the box. I haven't soldered them. Had to get other people to get me to wire them. But when I put the goggles on and flew, I mean, you just cannot replace that, and we got to love it. If you don't enjoy it, then there's no sense us doing it. But
that is true. That is very true.
It takes a different mindset from being a flippy floppy and being a racer. And if you want to be a good racer, then, I identify that I won't be a good racer. I don't have the time to put in. There's very few with the natural ability. And even Evan Turner with his natural ability, he's the way he is because he practices, every single day. His dad is a proud dad. I've never met an FPV dad that isn't, but his dad sends me training videos like 2-3 times a week. He's like, look what my boy's now. Look what my boy's doing now, And so, yeah, natural talent and practice, grit, and determination will make a national champion one day. He almost got that huge championship 2 weeks ago.
Dang. Yep, you are right.
He's something else, man. I tell you, the kid's got a great regiment, that's for sure. And the dad definitely, you can see it shining through. You know what I mean? That guidance. He's not pushy. He's not one of those helicopter dads when he comes to they let him do what he wants to do. I mean, they give him time to breathe. And it grows. It does grow.
Kevin is a riot. I mean, you gotta follow him on Instagram. Like in Reno, he snaps an Instagram picture that he's in a blue porta-john, watching with his Fat Shark Attitude V4s on, watching the race in the john, like in the porta potty.
Hey, all I can say is he just doesn't kill it on the track. He also kills it in social media. That is very true. He is on it. He's multi-discipline talented right there. But we got to cook because, we're 30 minutes in. We still got like 4 other ones to cover. All right, my favorite event of the year, probably. I was there for 3 days. Multi-GPIO, probably truly one of the international events that we had here in the United States of America. It covered such a wide area, 7 tracks. All of them were running. People were having fun 24/7. Some people probably slept all of 7 hours in 7 days or something like that. Yeah. Joe Scully amongst one of them probably. He looked a little ragged by the end of it. So, yeah, multi-GP, like the sheer scope of trying to pull that off. Give me the tale on that.
It was an amazing event, multi-GP Riot International Open. It was actually 8 tracks, and we ran them simultaneously. Unfortunately, we just had so much going on, so many moving parts that what we wanted to do is just go on radio to all the event directors and queue up 8 and then officially get 64 craft up in the air at a given time. But we just didn't have the coordination. I mean, we were already pulling off the impossible. So I'm thinking that's something that we'll try and do in 2018. But I mean, the roots and the basis of the multi-GP Riot International Open was what we did a year earlier in Muncie. National Championships for 2016. We ran 3 tracks simultaneously. And we're like, we pulled off 3. And then other people were comparing events and like, they pulled off 3. How come you guys couldn't pull off 3? Or blah, 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 blah. And then Chris Thomas says, all right, we're going with 8. I don't even know where he came up with the number 8. Other than we can fly 8 on race band, but it was 8. And we're like, wow. So there was a lot that went into pulling that off. I mean, we also had from 2016 the IB Crazy method of getting 16 craft in the air on one course. And what we learned from that experiment, that stunt, that hypothesis being proven true was in play at International Open. What the take homes from that we use at every event, even if it's a small meetup in a park. But that is basically how we went into it. And when you got your diagram, if you pull it up on Google Earth, it's actually in a clock, all 8 flight lines. And so the receivers are all pointing back to back. And so and then the because they alternated around the circle, the polarity between the channels, so go left, right. So race band 8 is left on one track, and then it's right hand on the other track. And then the biggest thing is power. Everyone is low power, 25 milliwatt, which is more than what you need for close proximity. And, and then an amazing team of volunteers, tier 1 chapters of multi-GP and all those that support them. And you put all that stuff together and then you pull off like an event, like the biggest event. And any pilot that was there, the best event that they've ever been to. The biggest event that I'd ever done previous, I believe, was the FPV Air Show, May 2016 in Paris, France, south of France. 177 pilots. International Open, there's 305. Most ever that we'd flown on one property was 24 in 2016. 3 flight lines running simultaneously. And this time we got upwards of 64, and the other thing too is we came up with a new system and we had a lot of new tech from the Immersion 8-way and the TBS event tracker, both systems dialed in, event directors that know how to use it, of course, all powered by Lifetime scoring, and Corey and Brandon from Lifetime were there assisting, and just all this stuff that went into it that, we're flying, 12 heats an hour on the World Cup track, the most popular track. Second most popular track, the rookie track, where it was chill. And I think the number is almost 20,000 laps that were recorded with all the timing systems between practice and qualifying when the timing systems were going. There were times the timing systems weren't going. And you go from 177 pilots, which I think was the biggest ever. Dubai maybe had a bigger number, but only 70 of those pilots flew. flew the actual course. Here we have 305 pilots that flew, 8 flight lines running more than 3, upwards of 64, 24 pilots to 64. Just huge numbers, and 11 heats an hour again and again and again and again on World Cup, and that's Paul Adkins and his group from Ohio that just really pushed that through. It took so many things that make it happen, but no one had seen the amount of packs burnt like that, even on the World Cup track compared to any other event. The tablet system that is now in its form. That wasn't the first time we used it, but it was coming into its real form on that World Cup track. Just the World Cup track, get rid of the other 7. Just the amount of pilots that went through, the number of rounds of qualifying that they got to run, and the championship was a top 64 double elimination of 8, which, yes, we started late because of team racing, and there was confusion, the language barriers, and it ended late, 12:30 at night, whatever it was, under the bright lights, which ended up being amazing. It was our plan B that was enacted. But, all of that, I mean, just on its own, the World Cup track was amazing. Now you put the whole thing in. We have, it's like being a parent. And I'm expecting, and I'm going to have my second kid. So I'm really trying to train myself. But you can't have one favorite kid. But if I did, from 2017, International Open was that was our favorite event to run. Multi-GP. It was just outstanding, and to be able to get, everyone had their own contribution on our team in some different ways, and it was a blast, man. Like from my end, every table, tent, chair, receiver, adapter, antenna, every placement of the whole every flight line, was part of the design that I put through. And then, we set it up, and there was like 8 of us or 6 of us setting it up. That was a lot of fun. But then the courses, there was teams, everyone just putting this whole thing together. And then when it was done, I mean, it was just such a high, so proud of that event. And the changes that we're going to make for next year, we just have to change little things that are going to make it so much even more better that, just such an outstanding event that that is one that you can't miss. You can't miss.
So if, like I already said, and I said at the beginning, if you are going to go to one major event here in the United States, it has to be I.O. I'm just lucky that it's over here in the Midwest and I don't have to travel far. Elvin, you're going to have to get your butt out there. But we also can't be remiss to say that the drone guys had a lot of fun. But hearing the stories from the drone guys and the wing guys, I think the wing guys actually had more fun. To me, they had some really good stories.
Because the wing guys had me wanting to come.
Well, and that's the thing. We want you to come. So unfortunately, we spent just as much work on the freestyle course as we did on the micro course. And we had more people on the micro course than the wing course. There was only about, 10 or 12 wing guys at the event. They had the biggest, the biggest flight line from Urcha, which is the week before, was where the wing course was. And they had a blast because it was just them back there doing their own thing. We, I would have thought that we would have pulled wing for 2018, but, we want to make wing, wing is a big part of FPV, and we want another chance at pushing it forward. And of course, we talk about how well TBS stands behind everything from multi-GP to simulators, but video aerial systems is another major part of multi-GP. Also, major success of the International Open. We had ground stations on all 8 flight lines with crosshairs, and crosshairs are pretty much the only antenna you can use. Like, it's a patch that nothing bleeds through from behind. That's how we pulled it off, right? Alex is a wing guy, so we're gonna do wings again, and we really want to see many more wings. I mean, we haven't set a number of what our goal is, but we did 305 pilots last year. I mean, we want that number to be much higher this year. Wings are a big part of it. There's going to be, the planning is already in play right now. There's not too much that I can leak because we're still in the planning stages. But, one of the concepts is that, one of the things that we identified is we need to make sure that every track is being utilized. And last year that wasn't the case, but I mean, it was the inaugural year. So tracks are going to have dual purpose And then the competition to compete in the World Cup is actually going to come from different tracks. And then World Cup, because people want to qualify on it and practice for the competition, I think we're going to have 2 World Cup tracks plus another 6 tracks that'll all be dual purpose. There's talk today on Facebook about having X class there. They need 10 by 10 gates. Well,
Right.
We can build that into our team race because team race wasn't as popular. So we can, have an X class time. We have the rookie track, and technically rookie is intermediate. If you're a rookie, you're probably just going to go do flippy floppies out in an area or in the freestyle line, or you're going to get a chance to put your quad down. You're not going to probably fly very far if you're a rookie. So our rookie track is an intermediate. But we also, we have all these tracks, and why don't we do a senior race? It's just programming and management, and these are all ideas that are being floated that'll probably come to fruition. And I'm going to tell you right now that I have a little bit of pull, and it's going to be a 40. I think a 40 and over is going to be the senior, because I turned 40 this year.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
I'm going to be flying in that senior drone race.
Hey, Detroit Joe, goodness. We're looking at you. We're putting money down on you. Got a
there's
quarter
a
on
whole
you.
bunch of guys that's going to be in that one.
I got a quarter on Detroit Joe. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. By the way, I truly hope that the wing guys show up in force for IO, and Elvin, you got to be there because we're going to be there in force to cover that event, because it was such a great event, and I'm sure it's going to be an even better event in 2018. Just seeing the international roster and the way they competed, it was truly something to see. Everybody was fast, and the batteries all cried, but that's a different story. Let's go ahead and move. Go ahead.
And just to that, I mean, the big winner was BMS Thomas. He won both spec racing, which he built that quad that weekend, like on site, and like the multi-GP spec racer, and he won the World Cup. And he doubled down. I think he won over $5,000 for his efforts. And then, of course, he comes back and does the same thing in Sebring. So, another one of those young guns, too. He's just got his learner permit and is about to buy his first car. He wants a Tesla.
Hey, listen, you're going to have to win a lot more drone races for that.
He said he don't have enough. I told him to get a Subaru.
Yeah.
Dude, he's really far from across the pond to be able to want a car. He should get some flight miles.
Yeah.
Well, he lives in that area where the Subaru would probably do him the best.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
That is true.
Subaru in Australia, that's like us buying a Civic here. Like, they're a dime a dozen.
Old outback country, man. You know what? It's on my list. I always wanted to visit Australia, but definitely some good drone racing going on down there, I bet you. Let's move on. Okay, let's go international, and then we'll cover the last 2 events. Now, I will say I preface that the best event in the United States was IO. That's because the Korea Nationals was just insane. If you just watch any part of that coverage, those guys know how to party. Or those guys know how to make an event and go big. So
they threw down big.
They did. So tell me what it was like to be there, because it was pretty much like being at the Olympics for Korea, literally.
Yeah. Like, just absolutely blown away. The International Drone Sports Competition 2017, and I had the honor of being live stream commentator with my good buddy Steele Davis. And we had an absolute blast. All the pilots there had an absolute blast. The Multi-GP National Championship, Captain Vanover, he got a nod, airplane, hotel, entry fees to go to that as being the U.S. champion. And, every pilot was just blown away. And like you said, it was like the Olympics. And the first year they had it as a demo. They had it right at the ski hills where they're competing right now in the 2018 Winter Games. And they're like, okay, we want to bring drone racing to the Olympics as our demo sport. And then they did, so they did that demo and they got lots of support. And then they did this, second kick at the Cat, and just such an amazing presence from the stage that the pilots were on. Had a big TV that you almost needed sunglasses for the big screen that was behind it. I mean, it was like 40 foot tall by like 80 foot wide, and it was like HD, the screen in the background that they would show logos and then the live feeds and FPV feeds on. It was just absolutely outstanding and just so prim and proper, and the cameras that they had, like these lenses that were bigger than your average like mailbox, like massive lenses on their cameras to follow the drones. And then the course, KDRA was the local organizer with this group, this International Drone Sports Competition, or Drone Sports International, DSI, and they've designed these gates that they're inflatable, and like the fans are in them, and they go up in like 10 seconds and they go down in about 15. Wow. I unzipped one and it just they're quad proof, and so they had, and each one of those gates is $450 to $500, I think, and they had, I don't know, 30 of them. So they spent all this money on this course, all this money flying in all these pilots from all over the world. They tried to get a good representation. I don't know the number, if it was about 30 different countries, but they had a bunch. Like there was probably about 8 or 9 from America, and there's some Canadians there. There's Germany, England, and Australia again, and all over Asia. They're just such an amazing event, and just the wow factor. The opening ceremonies was like 3 hours in duration, and it had like K-pop singers and cheerleaders and dance troops and every politician from every region, because it was sponsored by the county, the town, and the province. Everyone had someone show up and do a speech, and it was a crazy time. Like, it was like, we've made it, The event, unfortunately, they only ran 4 pilots at a time. They had an ambitious schedule. I don't think that they were planning on a 3-hour opening ceremony when it was all said and done. So,
dude, that was very boring from our point of view, but I'm sure they enjoyed it.
The schedule ended up getting pushed, and all of a sudden, these videos have got no views because I'm not a good looking dude, but for the first day, Saturday, all my role was to walk around and interview pilots, and for the live stream, which never got used, or for release for PR, and they've released them, and I think the 20 up there have got a combined total of maybe like 500 views. So I just walked around, and anyone who spoke English, I'd just interview them, and they'd edit it up. And that's what I did day one. And my whole role, they flew me from, I was in the States, flew me from the States to Korea. And it's a 3-hour drive from the airport to the event, was for the live stream. And then they're like, you're only doing the top 32. Well, the schedule was so delayed that, day 2, I showed up 8 o'clock in the morning. I was ready to go, because I announced one round of qualifying in-house when the Korean announcer had to leave on Saturday night, and everyone thought it was amazing because no one knew. Like mostly everyone there spoke English, and so that you just hear all event long. You have to ask someone, and they translate, the information. All of a sudden, it's like 5-6 o'clock, and on comes the Scully, like, on the tote, here we go, and everyone's like hooting and hollering. So I showed up at 8 o'clock in the morning to do qualifying round number 2, and they're like, no, Korean. I'm like, I don't speak Korean. So I was there from 8 o'clock until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, waiting for this live stream to kick off. And so finally, the top 32, Steele Davis and I are there, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're doing team racing now, and we didn't know what it was. And Sahan from DR1 comes running up. It's just like DR1. And he throws a PowerPoint in our face, and we look at it cross-eyed, and we pull it off, and then we're into this race, and we are freezing. And all of a sudden they come up. If you watch that live stream, you actually see I do 3 costume changes because they didn't like the shirt I was wearing. And so they brought me a shirt that was too small. They brought me like an Asian large, right? I'm a US XL, at least a 2X, right? And so that thing, like, it was a belly shirt. So I'm like sitting in this belly shirt, then like pull me off camera, bring me like an Asian XL. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna fit. So then they get me like a 2XL. Still, I think we had to give it away to the Salvation Army. It doesn't fit me anymore. So I do these 3 costume changes. All of a sudden, we're down. There's like 2-3 heats to go in the top 32, and then it's elimination and yada yada. And they come up and they whisper to me, and they're like, "We have a problem." And they're like, "What's that?" And they're like, "It's illegal to fly here at night." I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "We have to kill the live stream." And I'm like, what? And I look around, like Steele Davis and I have only been doing commentary for like 2 hours, flown over from America, sat around for 2.5 days, 2.5 hours, and we're having a blast. We've never done this together, and we're living it up, man. And they're like, no, we got to shut it down. We got to shut it down because it's illegal to fly after dark. The event is sponsored by the government, so for them to publicly broadcast the events on the live stream, they're like, we just can't do it. We just can't do it. So I said, well, guys, we've hit the cap of our. I made it sound like a bandwidth cap. We've hit our end of our bandwidth on our live stream. So enjoy the rest of your night. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, what? It's like, live stream done. And that event kept going and going and going and going, and I think it ended at like 9:30 at night or 10. But it was a really cool format. They actually went from like the top 32, and then they, and they're doing heats of 4 because they only flew 4 at a time, and then they got to like I think once they got to the top 10, then they stopped, and it was like head-to-head brackets racing, and that was exciting. And someone did a Facebook Live, and they kept grabbing me, and I was commentating on the Facebook Live from the pits. So, we still broadcast at the end of the race, but unfortunately, they even though it was under lights, it was they didn't want to risk it. They did finish the event. The event was won by Min Chen Kim, and Min Chen is totally unstoppable, and Banny UK came so close to doing it, and Min Chen didn't beat Banny UK in that race. Banny UK beat himself. Just flew into a gate. And he was disappointed, but I mean, I didn't get too choked up, but it was an emotional thing. Like, even, everyone just picked Banny up and was carrying him around, and Min Chen was picked up, and, because regardless, first or second, it was just such an amazing event, an amazing finish. Unfortunately, no one saw this on the live stream, but it was a really, really cool event. And Banny UK, I think, has never beat Min Chen in Korea. I think he's beaten him at other invitational races in Europe, but on the beach and twice at this international and drone sports competition, Min Chen has beaten him. And the Koreans are super, super fast. I remember, I'm always one for politics, but I remember some comments coming around that beach race from some people that were there, and they're like, you know what? Those Koreans, I think they're practicing. I think they set up the course. They get the course before everyone else, and they're practicing. There's no way that they can know these lines. And, and I was like, I don't know, different cultures or whatever. Right. Maybe that's true, but after watching it in person from a course that got set up and modified, and just watching, these guys, they're natural talent, like their opening lines, pack number 1 on the track, it was scary. And then, you give them the four rounds into that final, just unstoppable. Like, how do you beat Min Chen? I don't know how he got beat the last time, but, he is definitely, he's another young guy,
Right.
But just an outstanding event.
With tons of backing.
Well, yeah, that's their boy. They're behind them. But they also, there's another guy, Park Sung Jung. I think he's my Facebook friend. I think he ended up getting 3rd. But I actually, as we're getting through those brackets, I'm like, I think Park has got it. I mean, he's just as fast as Min Chen, not as experienced. And I think he had he beat himself. He had a personal issue. I don't think he got beat blade to blade on his head-to-head matchup, but it was an amazing event. I mean, the sad part of it was that was number 2, and then number 3 for that event was supposed to be right now during the Olympics. And unfortunately, they blew their wad, I guess, as it were, having it in October, and then trying to do it again in February. They just couldn't get their budgets and stuff approved. So that's the bad news. The good news is they're planning on doing number 3, the second annual, September 12th to 14th. So another, world-class race. And I didn't get the chance to go to Dubai, but other than a moving track, this thing, I think they outdid anything I saw from Dubai from presentation, like, from opening like ceremonies, and the prize money sure wasn't $1 million, but it was a good chunk of money as well, and just outstanding event. Like one of the best visual events I think I've ever been to, from rodeo, drone racing, and even other professional sports.
As a spectacle, definitely up there with Dubai in terms of spectacle races. And the racing was good. That was the thing. The racing was good. And it's one that's on my list, that I hope that I can get to make to in 2018. But, if you're into drone racing, you got to keep that one on your radar. Korea, really, really tough when it comes to like trying to outbeat them for class in racing, also talent, because they're serious over there, man. Every one of their pilots is well coached. Like, it's a little scary, their coaches sometimes, but that's a different story. We're gonna move on.
What really blew me away is I was there. I was not a race director. I actually slid in. I was so bored that I actually slid in and had to use an interpreter. But I got to help them with the scoring software Lifetime a little bit, with one option that they couldn't get figured out. But, I had absolutely nothing to do with anything, that event. And I got to be an observer with a VIP pass. I could walk wherever I wanted. And the way that they run a race for like the competition now, they only ran 4 at a time. That would really put them low on the event production end. Had they flown 6 or 8, then they wouldn't have had as many time deadlines. Their event would have been much better, blah, blah, blah. But they wanted to play it safe. Some people play it safe, but if you have 80 pilots, you got to use more than 4 seats. Other than that, they like just blow any other drone race away, for the way that they manage the behind the scenes in the administration. And it's something that's a take home that, we're trying to power test on the line as much as possible and do this, because we want to make sure it's fair and everything's clean. But what they do in Korea, which is amazing, they have so many volunteers and staff. A pilot shows up with his drone. He goes through, tech inspection. And so they're like, yep, you're on the right channel. Your power is the right amount. Your battery is good. You're good to go. Sweet. And so they give the pilot a high five. They take his quad. He doesn't get to touch it.
Right.
And the only time he gets it is when he goes up and he's 2 heats away in the hole and he's lined up. And they're like, here's your quad. Now, let's say you go out in that race, you crash it. You're like, oh, dang, I got to solder on a new ESC. They're like, no problem. You do it right over here. Here's the power and here's the official steering. So there is no tinkering. There's and it's amazing because if you look at a drone race now, everywhere is getting much better, but the big issues of waiting for someone, they're messing around in the pits and stuff like that.
Right.
There's none of that there, if you're not there 2 races away, they're very nice about it. They will do everything they can to get you into that spot. When you're on deck, they'll do everything if you haven't showed up. But if you come running up and you're like, oh, this is my race, they're like, no, sorry about your luck. But it's run so much smoother. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to, solve a lot of the problems of, someone janking with their quad. And I mean, it's pit tested and power tested, after your fixes and stuff. So that part was absolutely amazing. They had a judge on the stage just watching the takeoff. They had a judge that only watched 2 spectrum analyzers. He missed a few things, but I mean, it was really cool for him to, he's there just making sure, something's funky, it's flagged and they're pulling it in. If you ever hear me when I'm going backwards on an event, how can an event be better? Events I run, events I'm attending, whatever. I'd say, International Open, World Cup, they were doing 11 to 12 heats an hour, and that's on average. Like they were going higher some. What slowed us down? Why weren't we at like 15? Quad retrieval. I say that like every event. Mega Drone X could have been faster, but quad retrieval.
Right. Yeah.
In Korea, they had like 4 people on segways, the little segways, not the full one with the handlebars, the little one. So soon as everyone's down, they're dispatched. And they go and they pick up the quad and all its pieces and bring it over to that judge area. And so the next guys are powering up, and other than clear view issues with locking to a powered up quad, as long as, they power up when the other quad isn't, it's amazing. So, I mean, I learned a lot, and I mean, Korea, they definitely, we've seen it. And I mean, they just deserve another high five that they run like that event. once again, such a huge spectacle, but the way that they run an event behind the scenes it was inspiring. It was magnificent.
Nice.
Dedication to their discipline. It's amazing over there because it's part of their culture. But we got a book because like we're coming close on an hour, and I got 2 more events that I want to talk about. No, we're good. We love to hear about all this stuff, and so does everybody else because nobody can get to almost every event except for like a handful. All right, let's talk about my favorite local race here, which is like the biggest race. Probably, no, well, IO is bigger, so it's not the biggest race. It is the second biggest race. I'm just going to say that, which is MDX. Second annual, back into the caves. We had our legacy track, which was awesome. And then we also had a smaller track, which like everybody ran 5 inches there, even though it was called the micro track. Everybody's so fast nowadays. I don't care. You can't make a track somebody can't run a 5-inch quad nowadays on it. We had a lot of fun there. Mr. Miyagi, you were down there. You were interviewing every dude. I still have audio I still haven't listened to down there. I'm telling you the truth right now. I'm not
over 20 hours of recordings.
Wow.
It was a lot of recordings. It was a lot of fun. So takeaways from MDX, because it's probably one of the tracks people have the most good memories from. That's how I interpret it.
Even if you crash, though, you don't have any good memories.
Yeah.
If you crash, you just picked up your junk and went home.
The Mega Drone X is just such an amazing event. I mean, here it's a almost perfect RF environment. You know, we look at, Muncie, Indiana International Open. You'd think it's perfect. It's outside and, there's no trees and blah, blah, blah. Well, they had a point-to-point there on race band 4. So it wasn't the perfect RF environment, But when you're down 75 feet under Wendy's in the Louisville Zoo, pretty good RF environment. So to be able, and for us in November, it's getting cold outside. Now, I had my quad with me, didn't get a chance to fly it. And I don't think I flew outside since. So perfect timing for many of us to, get those last few packs in. And, so you're indoors. It wasn't even that cold. I think I was walking around in a golf shirt most of the time, but, golf shirt or maybe hoodie weather the entire time year round. And, so you got good RF environment. You're indoors, even though you're underground. And, we had 2 tracks running and 118 pilots and people flying a bunch of times due to many technological advances and so forth. And 2 tracks going of upwards of 8 at any time. So 16 at a time underground, and people flew more. I think it was 5 packs a day minimum on both courses. I can't remember the actual stats, but I think people could fly like 11 times a day or 12 times a day. Unheard of with 118 pilots at a drone race. So that part was awesome. And then just like, when I was talking about Sebring, here's an event in its second year and it's got that worldwide recognition. That in 2016, our first MDX, that was probably one of the biggest live streams that FPV Live did. It was like 20,000 unique viewers over the course of the event. 18-hour a day live streams. So lots of time for people to tune in. But here you go, year number 2. And who do you got? You got McStrawley from Germany. You have like every Canadian pilot made the trip.
We love our Canadians.
Bull FPV, Gab 707, Pew Pew, AK, Anthony Caravan. It's like all these guys, Harmonic and May Day, like just Ryan Walker nailed up. I mean, I'm forgetting so many. There were so many Canadians that came down to that event, more than the year before, and all across America as well. Of course, we have the kids, and Dolma killed it, and Heads Up Evan Turner killed it, and over on the micro course, Envy Astro, we talked about him earlier. He won over on that course. McStrawley from Germany was the TQ on both courses, and he won on the legacy course, on the big course. But 118 pilots, lots of flying. Plus, we did team racing, which we did last year, but team racing and spec racing. And we our days weren't as long. They were pretty long, but another banner event. And And this time they flew more than the year before, but better camaraderie when all the pits were kind of together, and just another one of those events that you got to get to. It's one of the ones that you got to experience.
It definitely is. And here's the reason why. And this is something that's truly unique to MDX, because it's completely indoors, and because the lighting is good, but it's still relatively dark in there. And then when every quad has an LED, even though it's covering like 1,800 feet of area, you can still clearly see every quad. And as long as you track which LED is your favorite guy, you can watch that guy through almost the entire race. It's the only event where that is true, because a lot of the other events, don't get me wrong, I love the other events, but they cover such a large area, and without that LED, being visible, you just can't. It's very difficult to track unless you're doing it through FPV. This is one where if you watch line of sight, it is still very fun to watch. A lot of the great pilots, even though when they got disqualified out, they stayed, they pulled up seats. They literally took all of the seats from the pits, came over and watched Scully announce. We were there, like, right? I turned around. There was like a crowd right behind us where we were sitting, and it was great watching because they were all entertained. Scully was doing, knocking out of the park announcing, and you can see the quads. It's the only event that can do that. Unfortunately, unless you're willing to fly, you can't get down there. That's the only problem.
Yeah. The old spectator tickets and stuff like that. Yeah. And can you imagine? I had to, if I just showed up, like I had the weekend off and someone else was running the event, then I'd have to like register with my Vortex 180 Mini and, just to go up there. I just don't have the skills. I mean, I would be out there. I'd probably fly like what we did with the Titan drone. Like they just did the big oval and team racing. I could do that for sure with confidence. So I'd pay my registration fee to get down there. But what you mentioned about the pilots, I mean, that is, from year one and year number two, one of my all-time favorite memories. And nothing can compare to the camaraderie that we have at these events. And, look at some of the initial events of drone racing, like Drone Nationals 2015, the first one ever in Sacramento. Like, did they fly a bunch? Was the video great? No and no. But at the same time, everyone got to meet each other for the first time, and camaraderie. And then, just keep going every event. And as the events get better and more efficiently run, you still have this camaraderie. And, I'll never forget, the first MDX, and it's like 11 o'clock at night, and we're just trying to push through. And I had a monitor to my right that was facing the pilots, and a noob, Zach Thayer, was there with his feet up, either side of the monitor, just sitting there cracking jokes. And the guy's funnier than the two old guys on the Muppets, it's just, and there was a circle. It was a smaller circle. And then a year later, now to have all them pilots hanging out there watching the live stream, FPVlive.tv did another great job there with the big monitors and everyone around them. And we had so much fun. I mean, one of the things that a pilot said to me, one of my catchphrases is, who has more fun than us? Nobody. It's on my sticker sheet, of course. And they're like, you know what? You don't really see that much anymore. I'm like, do you know when I said that is when we got bad news, guys? It's going to be an hour break here while we go fix something. Guys, we're going to have to drop 2 seats and readjust the heat sheets. Guys, we're not going to get practice done today. They're still building the course. And then I pause and then I go, who has more fun than us? Nobody, right? Because it's usually bad news. And sometimes when we go from bad news, and we finally get good, the catchphrase comes out again, now everything's running so good, but you're looking at MDX. I mean, that was it. That was the fun, and, sure, I said it, and right there it was proven that at that time, if you were in the cave, on the course, waiting to fly, or just sitting there watching, you'd been eliminated. Like you said, why? It was the time of your life. There was no one having more fun than we were right there. There's so many videos that you see after that. There's the stuff behind the scenes that actually makes it on the scenes, and just the whole atmosphere that it's unstoppable, and you just can't beat it.
Top event for the United States. Definitely head down to MDX. Learn to fly a quad just to go down there once and say you were at MDX. That's what I'm going to say. All right.
That's your excuse.
That's your excuse. All right. Last one of the recap. Multi-GP Nationals. Can't talk about drone racing unless we talk about Nationals in Reno. Definitely an interesting one. Couldn't make it because it was out in Reno, unfortunately, but got a lot of reports back. It was definitely a different track, right? Because you're talking about a much smaller area. A lot of pilots were surprised, but at the end of the day, there was a lot of good racing done, and it was at a very good venue. So talk to me about that event.
Well, the 2017 Multi-GP National Championships was a journey. I mean, 14 regional championships down to that national championship on one course. You know, the year before we had 3. That's what made Multi-GP, you know, the worldwide recognition. Everyone knew who Multi-GP was, but running events efficiently and everything that we're known for, running 3. Now we're stuck with 1, and there's so many hurdles to get over. We had the video issues of interference from stuff in hangars and back the backhaul for all the ISDN, all the broadband for the entire property from ticket sales, and you know they get over 150,000 people through that event over the week, you know, Wednesday to Sunday. So you can't turn off the internet because that's how they pay to get in and buy stuff. You know, we had to fight with that and you can't turn it off, and then all of a sudden the wind, and you know, that came into a part in our construction, and then later in the event, and we bought like the net from China, and it got locked in customs for a day, and so we were a day behind on setting up. You know, you got to build the house frame before you start, you know, moving the furniture in, and then we had wicked lightning that at one point did a complete like 360 around where we were standing. Like, it was such a battle. It was an uphill battle, but the team that we had in place, once again, and the pilots, you know, stood up. We built, you know, we were a day behind, and we were right up front, and we're like, we're a day behind, guys. You go fly somewhere else. If you want to come help, we can use our arms, but we're a day behind. We finally got this thing built, the nets, the gates, all, and all of a sudden the storm of the century comes in with the wind, blows everything in, rips the whole top off the whole thing. We didn't have time to cry, but we're like, oh no, this is bad. Like this is the worst that's happened. Like the ferry sunk. You know, this is how bad it is, right? And then it was perseverance. It was like, okay, remember the guy I talked about, Den Hartog? You know, Den Hartog, we need to weigh this stuff down, dude. How do we weigh this down? We can't use water barrels. It'll kill video. Well, use play sand. Wow, did you pull that out of your back pocket? Boom, we go buy, like, I owned $2,600 in play sand at the end of the event. But you know, we got the play sand. And then, you know, my dad's a millwright, and the whole design was engineered, and you know, second set of eyes. Okay, this is how we got to fix this. But we got to run this cable. Well, there's only so many people, and our crew is already overworked because we've just finished setting this whole thing up. All right, split the crew. This was Chris Thomas's idea. He was away. You know, speak of weather, the Hurricanes had taken Chris Thomas away from Multi-GP for the month previous to the national championships and the national championships. He was in Texas. Then he just got dispatched for the hurricane coming into Florida, which also delayed a quarter of our team because Multi-GP is Florida based for this whole setup. So weather is against us. Like Harrison Gale from XDC says, God hates drone racing. Look at, you know, the storm of the century in Dubai that ruined that event. The storm that almost killed me in Ibiza, you know, and they've never had a hurricane come in shore that time of year. You know, look at Hawaii, and, you know, just the rain, and you know, it was a bad part of the island. God just raining down on that event, you know, and here at Reno, blow this thing in. So, you know, we split. I called Chris, and I'm like, yeah, this is our situation. Like, you know, here are our options. Here's what we're thinking. Give us some additional insight. And he's like, well, you know, you're against the clock. You know, we can't delay another day, obviously. And he's like, you got to split your crew, you know, more night crew and morning crew. And I'm like, all right. And me and David Roberts, who's the new president of Multi-GP, unfortunately, we're de facto on both crews. And we got more volunteers, and I left that night at like 2:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
David Roberts was my ride, and we're back for 6 a.m. with morning crew to finish off the course. While Jordan Temkin, Jet, two-time DRL world champ, is crawling underneath the lift, dragging cable so that we can anchor down, the House of Cards again. And all of our volunteers, pulled an all-nighter, Den Hartog again, and we also had Bonk, and so many people involved with this thing. Night crew and then morning crew came in, and Cody from Las Vegas as well was totally big behind it. And all of a sudden, boom, we finally got this thing ready to go about 2 hours into the next day, and we started the program. And by the time it was all said and done, our championship had to end by 1 o'clock on Saturday or whatever, because our live stream guy had a plane to catch. The air races championships was coming up, so we'd be flooded out by jets, and they wanted us to be done by then. And we were able to catch up somehow, miraculously, through perseverance, and we delivered our entire race program. We didn't cut anything other than that one day that, there was going to be an open practice day that we weren't ready for. Now, finalists from 2016 in Muncie, where we had 3 tracks, to Reno with 1 track, they didn't fly as many times. They got to fly 30 times in Muncie. A practice, I think they only got 7 in Reno, a practice before the competition. So we may have been, obviously the cards that were dealt. However, the Sirius 60 and the UTT 60, they got to fly 3 more packs than they did the year before on 3 tracks in Muncie. So that was a huge win. We finished, the wind stopped, the sun was out, the weather was gorgeous when we went into that final 4 with Jared, Jaws, Nurk, and Captain Vanover, or 32 bits of Gill. Nurk was eliminated, I think. And yeah, so it was Jared, Jaws, 32 bits of Gill, Captain Vanover. That final 4, and then just walk out, and then just boom, that final heat was just such a race. And it was, the race happened right, for the right reasons. There was no, you can't go back and debate the result. It was an amazing heat. And then boom, we do our podium. And then, bam, we cut the live stream. Guy packs his stuff up. He makes his plane. And it was just like Hefty from Multi-GP and I, like, we just went over and, it was like a bro hug. But we're like, holy hell, what have we done? Like, how do we this was the event that wasn't supposed to happen. So it was just an amazing event, 150 pilots, 1 course. And to deliver on that program and to rebuild, like, there were so many setbacks on that event that were unforeseeable and not planned for, and then perseverance, pilots on site. At one point, I mean, I hate pointing people out, but at one point there was a minimum of 30 pilots holding the bottom net down, and it was lifting them off the ground. The gale force winds was blowing that much. But wow. It was a miraculous end to the season. 14 regions down to this, 150 pilots down to that final 4, and then, Captain Vanover, national champion, and then he gets the ride to Korea, 3 weeks later or whatever. It was just it turned into an amazing event. It was, one of the lines that I say often. It's not the worst. It's not the worst, and that was the hashtag of that event. Because the event, we could have been in way worse shape, but we weren't, because we persevered, and it all smiles. One of my favorite memories from that one, you talk about all the pilots around the screen and Megadrone X here in Reno. And all season long, we've been handing out these chips. The same type of poker chips or blackjack chips that you get at a casino, but they have the Multi-GP logo on them. And we'd handed them out at International Open, and we had some more, and we handed them out in Reno. And so they're actually betting beside a big 52-inch monitor in the pits, all the pilots that have been eliminated. And you see it on our live stream, and they're betting, and it's free, there's a couple dollars in there for fun because people had run out of their chips. But, and you can see there was a lot of drama in that races, because there was a midair, and then who went further, and then a guy lost video, and we couldn't tell if he missed a gate or not. And we had to spend all this time with this drama. And then during that, our live stream was the best ever live stream that I think we'd ever done for a multi-GP championship. We had this camera that was behind the scenes. It was a mobile HD camera, and that camera was just put right in the face all those guys standing around gambling. You know, they're holding their bets. They don't know who won. And the camera's like, who do you think won? And one guy says, well, I think he missed the flag. The other guy says he made the flag, but I think he missed the gate. And then, you know, so you have all this drama and everyone just right into it. And, you know, I think watching that live stream back, that especially, you know, the top 16 double elimination finals is like, our sport is just, it's made it, you know. There's great television, DR1 with their team format, and DRL, you know, with their produced racing format. It's all great. I enjoy it, you know, but our live stream, you know, from multi-GP national championships in Reno, that was live. That wasn't to tape and edited. That was live. The drama that you saw, we did not know who was going to, you know, move ahead. And, you know, free fall, Chance Hartman, he was the TQ, the top qualifier. He was unstoppable that event. And Captain Vanover hit the back end of him and put him into a net. And then Captain Vanover crashed closer to the next gate. And his dreams, his championship was dashed. It was his to win. But then all of a sudden, the other DVR review, you know, could go in Chance's favor, even though he got, you know, eliminated there. He actually could advance. The camera was on him, you know, and, you know, you could see that he was kind of hoping, but, you know, when he got the bad news, he's like, yeah, that's the way it is. You can't script that, you know, and just, I think there was just so much behind the scenes. And then with the, with Reese, our video production guy with multi-GP, the edits that he put together that were intertwined in that live stream. And when the championships are going to be featured this, I think next month on CBS Sports or NBC Sports, you know, you're going to see like just so much storyline and drama in that event that, you know, it just doesn't do it justice. That, you know, if you weren't there, you know, you missed it. But you have the live stream, you got to experience every part of it as well. And Adrian is the guy that was our first big live stream with him. And he came from the SELA organization, SELA chapter with multi-GP. He did our live stream in Sebring, and he's going to do our event here in 2 weeks in Las Vegas as well. He took a lot of the groundwork and stuff, and he's been able to package the drone race, and you're going to see, like, you know, look back on Sebring, look back on Reno, and look at how the story of drone racing is getting told better. Look at our, you know, our multi-GP YouTube page. The recap that just came out on the Sebring drone race talks about the team racing and what happened there, and you know, the how Evan Turner crashed out and Thomas Benmatta won the championship, and you know, we've come so far, and it's just such an honor. Like, I get giddy. I just looking back on these events and these live streams, you know, it's not because I like to hear the sound of my own voice, which I actually don't, but listening and watching these, I think we're really starting to, you know, grow into these, into these, this outfit, this mold, this, you know, we're coming to form, I think, in drone racing.
No, I totally agree. It takes a while to get traction on what is good drama for a particular sport, right? And we're still kind of in our infancy. I mean, it's not been around that long. And live streaming, I mean, even till this day, right? There's only one other esport that does it well, you know?
Right.
So it's not like we have a whole lot of traction to go on in terms of what works in live streaming. So to come this far, to be able to do it this well, I know there's a lot of dedicated people really pushing hard to make this work, and it's a tough one, especially for, you know, the type of venues that we're at and also the type of vehicles that we're racing. You know, it's hard to convey that over a tiny little internet connection. It's better told over, you know, in live view, but, you know, we're getting there.
I think the biggest part of it is budget, though, right? So in Korea, they had like 19 cameras, and every camera had like a $30,000 lens on it. So, you know, they can follow a golf ball. And the cameras, they actually had a sports production company that does golf and tennis and stuff. So they could follow it. You know, we don't have that at our regular events. You know, we didn't have that when FPV Live was bringing you the Megadrone X1 or 2, and we didn't have that in Sebring or in Reno when Adrian was, you know, driving our multi-GP live stream there. but we're creative. Gosh darn it. Like, so proud of what Toombs has done and Todd Wall with FPV Live. Like, we were able to like come up with graphics and figure out a way that we could show the elimination brackets and head-to-head racing. And then Adrian has got this mobile camera thing dialed in, and the overlays that he's taken it to a whole other level. In fact, he was going through the API a different way and came up with popping the lap times on the feed. So when someone crosses over, I was actually calling races off the live stream in the middle of the course in Reno, with these new things that he had invented that is now part of the broadcast portion with the lifetime software that's free for any multi-GP chapter to run. We're growing through leaps and bounds, and it's because we don't have the budgets. We don't have, some of us have sports entertainment or television video production experience, but look at how many people in FPV, whether they're a flippy floppy freestyler or a racer, they're putting out these vlogs and stuff. They had no video editing experience, but now they're learning, and now they're almost experts. They probably, some of them can edit better than those that took film and video production at college.
Some of them just that good.
Yep.
And so when it comes to these live streams, you look at DRL, of course, with the 20 million in VC funding and the experience of Nick with the Tough Mudder and all the professionals that they put in there. Look at what they're able to do using GoPro footage and the power of editing. And the one commentator is kind of an idol of mine. That's Craig Hummer. If you watch DRL, the blonde guy, he's actually commentator that does pro bull riding PBR on television, so I was very familiar with him. What they're able to do. So you've got all these creative people saying, how do we do that live without that budget? So we've been able to do that, mixing in some of those line of sight cameras with the FPV cameras, seeing what DRL does and DR1 does, and then DCL now with their great live streams that aren't live. They're live to tape and reproduced, and what they're doing blows me away. And we've got some ideas that I've been kind of scattering those seeds down to our video team. Some ideas from all these different things, and no one has got the best mix. Like, we have not. There's not been a drone race that we're like, bam, that was awesome, as great as a Super Bowl to watch. No, but we're all trying, and every one of these live streams, every one of these companies, every one of these people, like, if you look from a year ago to now, we're leaps and bounds, and it's great to see, and I think that's the same as all these drone races. We got these shoestring budgets, we got passionate people, very smart people, and now we got some more experience now that we're running all these races, and I think we're presenting it better online, and I think as we end the wrap up of 2017, I think the biggest take home, at least the way that I measure events, is the number of times, the number of packs of people fly, the pilots, heats per round, and blah, blah, blah. Looking at that, we've now, you're not going to a drone race and sitting around. Now you get to fly. So we've improved the pilot experience, and we're going to continue to grow that. Now we're just talking about live streams. I think it's all growing, and 2018 is going to be amazing, and can't wait to see what the future brings.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And 2017 started off a little slow. We really didn't know what to expect. That's the reason why you'll notice, like, if you recap back from beginning of 2018, me, the Quad Talk podcast, we really pushed Sebring as an event to go because we really didn't know what else was there, right? Yeah. IO was kind of, it's going to happen, it's not. Collegiate was like, we don't know what's going on there. Korea, too far away. MDX was kind of on the bubble, but then, all of those races come together, and it turned out to be a great year. We're still kind of in the recovery phase. We had a downer a little bit towards the end of 2016, but I think we're on our way up, and I think 2018, it's something we're going to discuss probably in the next part. Like, there is a little bit of racing fatigue. There is a little bit of, a little jitterbugness with new pilots wanting to come in because so many people are so good nowadays. The ruling has it's kind of all over the place, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there's a lot to look forward to, and it's something that everybody should look out for. I will say one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No.
One last thing, and this is something to all of the pilots. I totally understand. You paid to get to be there. You paid, to have to, live there for a couple of days through hotels, Airbnb, friends, whatnot. But when an event goes wrong because of weather and stuff like that, all hands on deck, man. You got to be there to make it happen. That's the only time I would tell a pilot is like, I know you guys have come here to fly, but when shit goes wrong, all hands on deck. Everybody helps out because, me and Elvin, we've been there, right? As soon as we see things go wrong, it's like, okay, all hands on deck. It's time to go.
We don't even look and check with each other. We just move.
Exactly. So that's the only thing I will say because, the yearly Joe Scully megastorm has been pretty accurate. I'm going to tell you this, okay? There's once every year there's a Joe Scully megastorm, and I just wait for it, and it happens.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It's so true. I tell you, in Sebring, we use the same netting, the golf course netting, and then we had monofilament around the outside, and when we were setting up the net, unfortunately, another delay, and so it was like 2:30 in the morning the night before we opened practice, and we're hanging the final net. And all of a sudden, that wind picks up, and I hear the howling wind through the net, and I'm like, oh no, it's Reno all over again. I mean, it's what nightmares are made of for race directors.
It hasn't hit for 2018 yet. It hasn't hit. I'm waiting, Joe. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see when it's gonna happen. Hopefully it's not IO because I want to be there and enjoy the whole week. But that's it for the first part. It's an hour and a half. Okay, we ran over by an hour. I'm gonna be honest. But you know what? That was a great recap. Loved every part of it. Elvin, any last thoughts on drone racing for 2017? Any takeaways for you?
I'm not. Look, I'll say this. It's always great to see the guys in the last few races. No matter where you go, no matter what race you're at, it's that last 4 or 5 races that really sum up the whole event, and it's each one of the last big races, the races from last year were great races toward the end, no matter how they started. Last year we had more issues of races starting not on time, but this year we had less of it. This year we're having less of that. Last year we had more of that, and things get decreased and flow better. And I really think that even though they start bad, all the races end well.
Everybody goes home. There's a champion at the end. And it's always great to celebrate with the champion. That's all there is. This is a great sport. Continue to support it. Get other people involved. That's what we're all about here.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.